Hello everyone and welcome back to the Zekko Football Channel. It's the beginning of the week and that means one thing. It's time to recap this weekend's football. Strap yourselves in, grab yourself a snack because it's going to be a good one. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that like button. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. It takes 2 seconds to just press the button. Go on. You know you want to. Go on. Thank you. And now, the recap. Let's start off with Nottingham Forest against Sheffield United. The game ended 2-1 to Nottingham Forest. However, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as comfortable as they would have liked. They scored extremely early on in about the 3rd minute, and then from that point on they started to dominate the match. I was quite impressed with the way that Danilo and Mangala started to dictate play. But it was around about the 25th minute or there so onwards that they started to dip in the game, and Sheffield United started to gain some passes, gain some momentum, and it wasn't until the second half that Sheffield United really managed to get back into the game. From then on, it was quite a bitty affair and one which lacked quality. And that's kind of how I'd sum up this game. It lacked a bit of quality, it lacked a bit of edge, it lacked a bit of finesse that I think we associate normally with teams in the Premier League. That doesn't mean there wasn't heart, that doesn't mean there wasn't effort, but generally it had an overall lacking of quality. If we have a look at the average positions for Nottingham Forest first, I think they have some decent positions here. This is the back three, then you have the midfield four and the front three. Generally, Steve Cooper is getting his players to work, and I do actually quite like that. Brennan Johnson out on this left-hand side, Morgan Gibbs-White playing on the left, but then coming into this central position, Awani taking up some roles in and around those forward-thinking areas, backed up by Nico Williams and Aurier. I thought that Nottingham Forest did quite a good job, but again, they let the foot off the gas, and I thought then that allowed Sheffield United back into the game. Speaking of the mighty Blades, here we have their back three, not bad at all. Their midfield double pivot is somewhat deep for my liking, but they do have some creativity going forwards. The wing play was actually not too bad, and then you obviously have the front three, bolstered and going forwards by Asula. I thought that generally Harmer was the best player for Sheffield United, and he obviously got that wondrous goal. What a strike that is. But really, again, like I said, it's just lacking quality. We can see that Sheffield United had 16 total shots, only 4 of them on target from an XG of 1.39. They did get their 2 goals, and Chris Wood did come up clutch in the end, but really, again, lacking quality, big time. We can have a look at their passing accuracy, and this is what I'm talking about. They had 436 passes, did Nottingham Forest, but they only completed 79% of those. 75% for Sheffield United, and that's somewhat dipping in the general standards of the Premier League that we've come to know and enjoy. A decent match, but one that has immense impact in the way that this league is going to be seen. I feel like if it was later down into the season and perhaps at the midway point, we might have a look at this match and think it's a huge affair, especially when you're talking about teams that might be looking towards that bottom half of the table, towards that relegation zone. I think the Nottingham Forest have done fantastically well to get the win. Sheffield United will be kicking themselves that they didn't make more of their opportunities. It ended Nottingham Forest 2, Sheffield United 1. A huge win for Forest. Now let's talk about one of the more high-profile games of the weekend. It's Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United. Tottenham Hotspur beating Man United by 2-0. I thought United started the better in this game. For the first 30 minutes, they started to really bring it to Tottenham. Tottenham started well, but United edged into the game and then started to control possession. They started to dominate proceedings and make sure they were able to get into Tottenham's back third, and it meant that when they were able to pick up the ball, Bruno Fernandes and Anthony in particular were able to drive towards the likes of Destiny Udogie and Mickey van der Ven. I thought that Marcus Rashford won his duel against van der Ven on a couple of occasions, and really Manchester United should have made a lot more of the opportunities they created. Erik ten Hag spoke in his post-match press conference about the Wolves game and after the Tottenham Hotspur game, talking about how Manchester United need to start switching the play more, and you started to see that in the game against Tottenham. They were switching the play continuously to try and open up those spaces, and it's something that I think is going to need to bed into this Man United side. A new way of playing, and I think he's slowly but surely starting to drip feed the way that they should be approaching matches. That being said, they stopped playing in the second half, and it is something that really needs to be talked about. When we have a look at the attacking momentum bar, you can see that Tottenham ended the first half very well. And going into the second half, Manchester United were pretty much non-existent, and this was down to the midfield pressure that Tottenham had and the way that they were pinning Manchester United's players back. If we have a look at the average positions, I find this extremely interesting. Here is Tottenham, and we have their back four here. Perfectly fine. We have Bissouma as the lone central defensive midfielder, absolutely fine. But take a look at the two central attacking midfielders, and in this case it's SOAR and it's Maddison. Look how high they are. They're almost in line with Son, who's the furthest player forward. Richarlison dropping a little bit deeper to try and get on the ball. He failed to do so, but what he did end up doing is helping SOAR and Maddison to be able to go forwards and pick up pockets of space. Spurs' domination on the ball meant that the likes of the fullbacks were able to come into midfield to help out Bissouma when controlling possession, and this allowed SOAR and Maddison to start having freer roles driving forwards, and that's where the goal comes from. It comes from SOAR bursting into the box, something that I think Ange wanted from his attacking midfielders more often than not. Kulusevski and Son had pretty difficult games, but generally I thought they did quite well in making sure the play was spread out wide and allowing the likes of the two central attacking midfielders to really show off what they could do. From a Manchester United point of view, in terms of the attacking and general average positions, I thought they did okay, much better than they did in the Wolves performance, but still some very, very concerning signs. Lisandro Martinez dropping that little bit deeper to try and be that linchpin, to try and be that almost quarterback style role, picking those passes, but for me the play was a little bit too slow. The midfield three did better, they were closer together, and I think that was really very much of an instruction from Erik ten Hag to not leave Casemiro by himself. However, due to his average position, I think you could argue that Casemiro actually progressed a little bit too far, something that the back forward didn't want to do. They didn't want to follow him, they were not comfortable with doing that, and they just didn't seem comfortable enough with pushing that line that little bit higher. As in terms of duels, I thought Antony and Garnacho did a very poor job of trying to beat their defenders. They failed to do so on numerous occasions, and then there were some chances that Bruno Fernandes had towards the latter stages of the first half. But as I said, Manchester United went missing for a good half an hour in the second half. If we scroll down and have a look at some of the statistics, I think some of these are very interesting. Manchester United actually having an XG of 2.07. Spurs' expected assists is 1.39. They had more possession, but Manchester United had more shots, generally lacking in quality in converting the chances they created, and as you can see, Manchester United actually had 4 big chances and missed all of them. Spurs at least took a couple of their chances, and I think they deserved the win on the balance of play. They were the better side going forwards, especially in the second half, dominating possession, dominating proceedings, and really taking it with that Ange ball to this poor Manchester United looking side. Spurs did very well, and the signs are there for Ange and Tottenham that it could be a good season. And let's talk about the biggest game of the weekend, and that is Manchester City beating Newcastle by 1-0. City dominating the game as shown by the attacking momentum bar, but really there are so many interesting things that Pep Guardiola did with his City side to keep Newcastle at arm's length. I thought Newcastle had a decent game. I thought they tried to convert when they had the opportunity to. They just failed in certain areas, and it really is those moments that you need your players to step up. Almiron, I thought, worked his socks off, as did Anthony Gordon, but they failed to have the real clinical cutting edge to really breeze through that Manchester City defence. But as for what City did so differently, it's what I think Pep is known for, just tweaking something to allow his team to gain the upper advantage and the edge on their opponents. If we have a look at the setup for this Man City team, we have them set up in a back four. Obviously, Gvardiol picking up that left back slot, Ruben Diaz and Akanji as the two centre-backs, a double pivot of Kovacic and Rodri, and then a midfield three of Grealish, Foden and Alvarez playing as the cam. Haaland is obviously up front, but that isn't exactly how it plays out. Let's take a look. Right, here we have those average positions for Man City, and first of all, what I notice is the high line. Look how high they are playing. They're so close to the halfway line. That's down to the possession. They had 60% possession, I believe, against Newcastle, really taking the game to them, making sure that they are working for their opportunities. But really, if you have a look at those average positions, you could very easily say that that is the back four. You have Jack Grealish as one of the left backs, you have Kyle Walker as the right back, and then you have the two centre backs. And Akanji moves into midfield next to Rodri and Kovacic, allowing Foden and Alvarez to really be the two central attacking midfielders, with obviously Haaland up front. But if we take a look at Grealish's heat map, he is almost playing like a left back. Look at all of this heat. Like, really, he is dropping deep, making sure that it's difficult for players to pick up spaces. I'm thinking about Almiron, I'm thinking about Tonali, especially when they drift into wide areas, because they don't want to go through the middle of Man City. I thought this was a really interesting tactic by Pep, and it means that they get another midfielder into the middle of the pitch. In terms of this is Akanji. Akanji moves into and next to Rodri to allow Kovacic to move that a little bit further forwards, pick up those half spaces, but it also frees up Phil Foden and Alvarez, both to come inside and play off one another. Kyle Walker picking up those positions as well out on the right hand side. You can see how much he was here, really dominating that space out on this right flank. And really, it was just another tactical tweak that Pep Guardiola managed to bring into this side. Akanji coming into midfield. You wouldn't expect that he'd be able to do that, but Pep trusted him enough to be able to really help out this side. And then we can talk about the centre-backs in Diaz, who did a decent job, and Gvardiol, who ended up coming more inside as one of those main centre-backs. Again, almost allowing Jack Grealish to play something of a hybrid left-back / left-winger role. Very, very interesting indeed. Now let's talk about Newcastle. I thought they did a decent job of keeping City at bay at times. I thought that Bruno Guimaraes really read the game quite well. Tonali and Joe Linton failed to really have the impact that I think they wanted. Schär and Botman did okay, but really it was going back the other way, going in the forward attacking momentum that they'd really struggled with. Almiron struggled to really create all too much, and so did Anthony Gordon. It was only towards the latter stages of the game when I think Man City started to get tired that Newcastle started to find some joy. If we have a look at the average positions, they're pretty decent. The back four absolutely fine, and then you have the midfield two, or one of the pairing of the midfield three in Tonali and Guimaraes. Joe Linton pushing that a little bit further forward to be next to Gordon, who stayed wide, as did Almiron. Almiron I was very impressed with, especially with his work rate. He is absolutely fantastic. This entire Newcastle team works so very hard, but it's very difficult against arguably the best side in the world right now. If we have a look at the statistics, we can see that Man City had an XG of only 1, which is crazy when you think about it. It didn't create all too much, and they definitely didn't get all too much on target. Newcastle only having the 0.29 XG, which is nowhere near good enough really. One shot on target, and that's what I mean. Man City kept Newcastle at arm's length, and really it was down to the amount of clinical chances that Newcastle were able to create on the break. They had 200 less passes than Man City, but they only lost possession 4 fewer times. They lost possession 99 times out of that. And when you consider that Man City had 200 extra passes, it's just not good enough. And unfortunately, these are the fine margins that when you're playing Man City, you need to be perfect at. Unfortunately, Newcastle in this scenario were not, but Man City, with a fantastic goal from Julian Alvarez, managed to take the win. It was a tough game for Pep and his side after their Super Cup win, but they managed to get it over the line and defeat Newcastle. It was a good game to watch, a very interesting game to watch tactically. Man City edge it out, but Newcastle are definitely here to stay. Promising things, and you'd expect better from them in their reverse fixture. Exciting times. A decent game. And now let's finally talk about some of the other matches that happened this weekend. Brentford beating Fulham by 3-0. Fulham struggling to really make anything happen in this game, but I was so impressed by Brentford, and I'll show you why. Really, this front three, I think, from Brentford is going to be the next wave going forwards. Kevin Childe out on this left, Visser in the middle, and Mbeumo. Tim Ream having an absolute nightmare getting sent off. Issa Diop giving away a pass for one of those goals, but Visser and Mbeumo, who played second fiddle to Tony for quite some time, really stepping up. Matthias Jensen, I thought, was extremely good in this match as well. Fulham need to step up their game. Jimenez struggled to get into the match, and then when they brought on Adama Traore in about the 86th minute, he struggled to really create anything as well. Fulham need to get their game up. I was a bit disappointed with the way that they really managed to progress in this game, but Brentford looked sensational. Wolves tried to bounce back from their loss against Manchester United with a 4-1 defeat against Brighton. Not really looking too good. However, there are some positive signs. Wolves are creating chances, and going forwards, I do think that they would be able to take them later on. You can see from the attacking momentum bar that Wolves did create some serious opportunities. Brighton are a very, very good side, so losing in this manner is not necessarily too much of a bad thing. I thought Mitoma did an absolutely brilliant job of driving forwards and really creating those opportunities. His drive into the box for the first goal was sensational. And then it's just decent Brighton play. I thought Wolves could have been a little bit tighter at the back, making sure that they were able to cover those overlapping runs, cover those passing lanes, but they weren't. And unfortunately for them, when you do that and when you don't take into account the quality of the opposition and you don't make yourself difficult to beat, that's what's going to happen. You get punished. I thought Joao Gomez had a poorer game than I've seen him in quite some time. Mateus Nunes getting sent off for some absolute petulance. Just poor from him. Again, Wolves are desperately craving attacking opportunities. And really, you do not need your main creator or one of your main central attacking midfielders out. It's just not good enough. They need to bounce back, and they need to bounce back fast, because 2 losses out of 2 is not where you want to be, especially with the way the mental fortitude of the squad must be at after losing Lopetegui and then trying to bounce back from that loss against Manchester United. Remains to be seen, but Brighton are still high and flying. Enciso with 2 assists. He's looking like a player, isn't he? Given that number 10 by Brighton. Matoma, Enciso, Solly March. There's so many exciting players. Controlling the game by Billy Gilmore. Estupinian getting on the score sheet. Exciting times. And James Milner playing right back. It's just, he never stops, does he? Never stops. Liverpool and Bournemouth. This is intriguing because Bournemouth scored after about 3 minutes against Liverpool, and then Liverpool dominated the game. I did think they were rather fortunate in certain circumstances. The penalty I wasn't exactly too sure on. I think Szoboszlai made a little bit too much of it, but I do think it was a foul in the very end. McAllister getting sent off for a odd challenge. I'm not sure it was a red card. Salah missing his penalty and then getting the rebound. Diogo Jota benefiting from a deflected shot that came from Szoboszlai, and then Luis Diaz with a little bit of magic. Liverpool are starting to find their feet, but defensively I still do think they need something. Trent got caught on the ball for the first goal for Bournemouth, or the only goal for Bournemouth, and then that led to that counter-attacking opportunity. Liverpool's balance in midfield isn't quite right, and I do think they need to look at it. Perhaps that's where Endo comes in, or maybe they will dip back into the transfer market to try and get something working. Aston Villa versus Everton. I thought Everton were really going to show something here, but they didn't. They failed to really create or dominate in any kind of opportunity, and Villa took their chances. There are a couple of moments where Everton just handed the ball to Villa. I mean, really, Ashley Young with a throw-in from about this position over to Michael Keane, who missed the ball. It just summed up Everton's performance. Appalling, shocking, not really having their eye on the game, and Michael Keane was to blame for 2 of Aston Villa's goals, I'd argue. Ashley Young had a part in 1 of them. And when you have a side that's the quality of Villa with the determination and setup by Unai Emery, you don't need to be handing them out any freebies. Dominic Calvert-Lewin going off with a hen injury. Hopefully that's not for too long for Everton fans. And Aston Villa, I thought, bounced back very, very well. If we have a look at some of the statistics, I thought they did extremely well. A 3xG, very, very good, but 0.63 for Everton. They need to start picking up some form. West Ham beating Chelsea by 3-1. I thought this was an extremely interesting match, actually. Chelsea, as you can see, dominated. Just dominated the entire game, but West Ham ended up winning 3-1. They took their chances. You do not give corners to James Ward-Prowse. You just don't do it. No dead ball situations. None. Nothing. Please. None. But they did, and they managed to convert. James Ward-Prowse is probably one of the best players in the world at free kicks / dead ball situations. Nicholas Jackson failing to get on the score sheet. Raheem Sterling playing a decent match, but really he lost a little bit when Chukwuemeka went off. I thought Gallagher did an okay job. Enzo Fernandez looked a bit lost after he missed that penalty. Head started to dip, and I've got to question this. All of this. And by all of this, I do mean the back 3 and the midfield 4, because from what I've seen from pre-season from Chelsea, they played a back 4 for all of it, bar, I think, a half against Wrexham, and it seemed to work out for them. They were creating chances, they were scoring goals, they were doing okay. And then they switched to the back 3 against Liverpool. I understand it's Liverpool, they are scary, they do things, I get that. But really, when we have a look at Chelsea, they could be doing so much more with the players that they have, and it turns into a back 4 almost, but really, I think they need to be doing a little bit more, and I think you need an extra midfielder here. Caicedo does come on, gives away a penalty, which is unfortunate, but overall I didn't think Chelsea did enough, and creativity was sparse. West Ham managed to take their chances. I thought Mikel Antonio's goal was absolutely sensational. Paquetá converting that penalty. And although West Ham didn't have a loss of possession, although they didn't have a loss of the ball, I mean 76% possession for Chelsea, but they didn't really do a lot with it. West Ham actually ended up having more shots on target than Chelsea did. Crazy. Crazy. Football, eh? It's played in different ways, and David Moyes is showing that there are so many ways that you can approach this beautiful game. Just fantastic. West Ham beating Chelsea by 3-1. Chelsea needs to have a look at themselves and decide what kind of team they want to be. They were fine playing through the back against Liverpool, but against West Ham, I thought was showing arguably a little bit too much respect, and I don't think they got enough out of Ben Chilwell on that left wing role. As for West Ham, I thought they did a very, very good job. Huge win for them, especially considering the lack of transfer spend amidst all of the outgoings or possible outgoings they might be having. West Ham are looking okay. Chelsea need some work. Interesting stuff. Finally, let's have a look at the Premier League table. Obviously, Arsenal have not played yet, which is absolutely fine, but it looks like this. We shouldn't really be taking any note of this whatsoever, but Brighton are on top, Man City are second, and we have a look at Burnley, Wolves and Everton, who are looking to get their first win on the board. Burnley obviously having not played due to Luton's ground not being available at the moment. Manchester United are in 12th after their big loss against Tottenham Hotspur, who have moved into 5th and are looking quite promising under Ange. This is the Premier League table. You shouldn't be taking anything too seriously right now. It's just a bit of fun at the moment, but really we're starting to see some trends. Liverpool really getting back up there, Man City starting to progress, and Brighton are just doing fantastic. Brighton for the Premier League? Crazier things have happened. Crazier things have happened. But let me know what you guys think about this most recent Premier League weekend. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.